नमस्कार दर्शक मित्रों, मैं हूं आपका दोस्त डॉक्टर जयनारायण व्यास और आप देख रहे हैं हमारी अंग्रेजी चैनल, गुजरात की पहली यूट्यूब अंग्रेजी चैनल जो 7 समंदर पार तक जाती है, द ग्लोबल क्रॉसरोड्स। आज का विषय है, हैज पाकिस्तान outperformed India on the global diplomatic stage, separating perceptions from reality in an era of geopolitical change. Friends, in international politics, perceptions often travels faster than reality. A single diplomatic meeting, a statement at the United Nations, or a viral social media campaign can create the impression that one nation has scored a significant strategic victory over the other. In recent years, a recurring question has emerged in political discussions. The question is, has Pakistan outperformed India diplomatically on the global stage? The question is provocative, but the answer is neither simple nor binary. Diplomacy cannot be measured by headlines alone. It must be evaluated through long-term national interests, strategic partnerships, economic influence, institutional credibility, and the ability to shape international concerns. Judged by these standards, the picture is considerably more nuanced than popular political narrative as suggested. Diplomacy is far from, or rather far more than, high-profile foreign visits or speeches at international fora. It is the art of advancing national interests without the use of military force. Successful diplomacy builds durable alliances, creates economic opportunities, strengthens national security, and enhances a country's global reputation. Its results are often measured not in days or months, but in decades. Pakistan's foreign policy has historically been influenced by security concerns, regional stability, relations with India, as I was telling you, Pakistan's foreign policy has historically been influenced by security concerns, regional stability, relations with India, and its strategic partnerships with major powers. Over the years, Islamabad has also focused on strengthening its ties with China, maintaining close relations with several Gulf nations, and securing financial support from international institutions. At various international fora, Pakistan has actively projected its perspective on regional issues, creating the impression of renewed diplomatic activism. However, diplomatic visibility should not automatically be confused with diplomatic success. India's diplomatic trajectory over the past 2 decades has followed a different path, or rather appears to have followed a different path. As one of the world's largest economies, a leading technology hub, a major pharmaceutical producer, and an increasingly influential strategic partner, India has significantly expanded its international engagement, and that is too obvious. The most populated country, democratic, the single largest free market in the world, and a country which is ruled for years from inception by democratic governments. Therefore, India has a special place reserved for it in the international community. Keeping this in view, India has significantly expanded its international engagement. Its growing role in multilateral institutions, expanding economic partnerships, and along with the expanding international partnerships, some technological marvels like space achievements, the technology related with peaceful use of atomic power, and capabilities to have the modern warfare machines from aeroplanes to tanks. India has a manufacturing base because of its vast industrial capabilities, which can produce, once given the technology, virtually anything in the world. Yet, acknowledging India's growing influence does not imply that its foreign policy is free from challenges. Don't be under the impression that just because of the size, India can always prevail over any country, and its foreign policy has no flaws. But we'll have to look at it a little more closely and determine where it is okay and where it is not. Yet, acknowledging India's growing influence does not imply that its foreign policy is free from challenges, as I was telling. The international system is undergoing one of its most profound transformations. The Cold War era has ended. The bipolar politics virtually has given way to a multipolar arrangement. Dollars domination and de-dollarization are some of the major issues. Therefore, since the end of the Cold War, strategic competition between the United States and China, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, instability in the Middle East, disruptions in global supply chains, energy security concerns, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and competition over advanced technologies have fundamentally reshaped international diplomacy. In this evolving environment, friends, nations increasingly pursue multi-aligned foreign policies driven by national interests rather than rigid ideological blocks. This broader context is essential when comparing India's and Pakistan's diplomatic performances arise. Pakistan has, on certain issues and in specific forums, succeeded in drawing international attention to its concerns and maintaining support from some partners. India, meanwhile, has strengthened its relationships with diverse range of countries across North America, Europe, the Indo-Pacific, the Middle East, Africa, and the Global South, while expanding its role in several multilateral groupings. Neither easily said and nor reality supports the simplistic conclusion that one country has decisively defeated the other diplomatically. It will be a stupidity to say that India has diplomatically defeated Pakistan. No, that cannot be a statement which one can make as a sweeping statement on this particular issue. A single resolution, summit, or bilateral meeting rarely determines countries' long-term international standing. Diplomatic influence is built through consistency, credibility, economic strength, and institutional stability and sustained engagement. India's principal diplomacy and diplomatic assets lie in the size of its economy. It's the third or fourth largest economy and still expanding. Market of 145 crore people. Burgeoning middle class. Huge buying capacity. And even at the lower rung, as Professor C.K. Prahlad says, the bottom of the pyramid market, which in a smaller packages buys huge quantity when integrated. Therefore, the more than one reasons for the countries getting interested in India. The more than one reasons for the powers those be who are trying to sell their military equipment to get interested in India because India is one of the largest importer of the military equipment. India imports edible oil worth 1.4 lakh crore. India also imports 80% of its crude and petroleum requirement. With China, India's trade balance is negative to the tune of 140 billion US dollars. And some of the critical parts which are required in automation of the automobile industry in India, which is flourishing and thriving. And also, critical inputs like API, active pharmaceutical ingredients, come from China. And yet, there are people in India who talk about boycotting Chinese goods. But that boycott is limited to the goods which, according to me, are a non-entity. So one has to understand that modern diplomacy doesn't care for ideological values. So far, so it meets with its business interests. And so far, so it feels that nowhere, by way of passing on the technology or otherwise, it is sacrificing the national interest. It's fine. China can sell India and still have 140 billion plus trade deficit. And United States can cry that India is not purchasing enough from US, and we have about 100 billion trade surplus with India. So things, friends, are changing. We have to understand the demographics also. India is the youngest country in the world. Our average age is 31 years. 70% of the population of India is less than 35 years. We are therefore enough educated and skilled workforce, of course, with a strong need to make them competitive to meet with the international requirement. Then the countries which are getting older, like Japan, China, Europe, and America, would care for this Indian workforce, which is readily available and which can keep the manufacturing base intact and add to the GDP, and thereby keep up with the economic progress. So India is important. India is important in more than many ways. India speaks English, that is an added advantage. And India has some of the finest technological institutions like IITs, and also the space research organizations like ISRO and Physical Research Laboratory. So India cannot be just swept aside. India has its own strength derived out of knowledge. When Alvin Toffler says knowledge is power, I think India has adequately equipped itself with the knowledge that is power. And yet, unemployment, inflation, growing tension between the states, the cracks appearing in the democratic apparatus are some of the major problems that India is facing. So when India, you look at in terms of only diplomacy and only Pakistan, perhaps the picture is incomplete. You have to understand India's strengths, and to what extent India is able to market those factors which are its strong point and which meet with the national interest. I think it is there where the failure and pullout from Shabar, worsening relations, and Nepal getting more inclined toward China, our neighbors one by one, be it Maldives, Sri Lanka, or Pakistan, not being so friendly to us, it all should be taken as a concern. We should also understand that when we are talking about supporting Israel, we are forgetting that more than 10 million Indians work in the Gulf countries like Oman, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. The inward remittances from them amount to the tune of 8 to 9 lakh crores in foreign exchange, which is about 12% of the total budget of the country. So there are really delicate issues, and balance to be maintained dealing with our neighbors, dealing with Gulf countries, and also the countries which are friendly to us and are in need, like Russia, willing to sell us oil and technology both. Iran was one of the countries, rather only country, which supported India on Kashmir in the United Nations. Iran was purchasing oil from India. Iran was selling oil to India, accepting the payment in rupees and keeping part of them parked in India, never to be repatriated. Only they can import out of that money fruits, vegetables, eatables, grains, rice, etc. One of the nationalized banks in India has 100,000 crores balance because of Iranian deposits, which have been made as part of the oil dues payment. 17,000 crores worth of deposits are further added to it. So therefore, whether we talk about China, whether we talk about Russia, we have problems. There is a problem of intrusion of China in some of our territories. Tapir Gao, the member of parliament himself, on the floor of the house, has stated that Chinese have made deep inroads in Arunachal Pradesh. We have problems in Galwa, Chowk. China is establishing a base at the tip of the chicken snake in Bangladesh. Therefore, we have strengths and we have our own share of weaknesses as well. And hence, when we talk about our foreign policy or diplomacy, it has to address first the interests of India, what is in our interest, and up to what extent we can sort of bargain or we can wink an eye towards some of the violations that the other country is making. China, for example, and its intrusion also in publishing the maps showing some of the Indian territory as Chinese is an ideal example. And therefore, friends, like what you are listening to in this, while listening this debate, the continuous disturbance which is happening because of some masonry work going on as part of the regular repairs in my own building. The foreign policy is also like what you are experiencing is a disturbance because of the repairs activity. Nonetheless, the repairs are required to be carried out. So whether you like or not, what is there in the national interest ultimately dictates where we stand. At the same time, India cannot afford complacency, managing complex relationships with neighboring countries, balancing ties with competing global powers, strengthening engagement with the global south, securing technological leadership, and adapting to rapidly changing geopolitical realities will remain central challenge in the coming decades. Perhaps the greatest mistake in contemporary political discourses is treating diplomacy as a series of daily victories and defeats, amplified through television debates and social media trends, which according to me is all rubbish. Foreign policy does not function on emotional narratives. It operates through strategic patience. The real objective of diplomacy is not to defeat another country rhetorically, but to secure one's own national interests more effectively than competitors. Success is measured by economic growth, technological advancement, strategic resilience, investor confidence, international credibility, and the ability to influence global decision making. That is what is the diplomacy. And the country and its performance should be measured in these parameters. Social media of the present day in India has undoubtedly accelerated the spread of information. There's a positive fallout. But it has also encouraged oversimplified interpretations of highly complex geopolitical developments. Diplomatic outcomes are rarely absolute. Nations cooperate in one domain while competing in another. Strategic rivals often remain important economic partners. Today's disagreement may be, perhaps, tomorrow's partnership. That is the defining characteristics of 21st century international relations, which cannot be debated like a 2020 match and declared at the end of it, which most of our channels do, whether India has done right or wrong. The diplomacy doesn't give such kind of quick answers. It's not a 2020 game. It's neither a test match either. Just 5 days. No. Diplomacy goes on and on and on and on. Builds the castle one by one. Clears the hurdles one by one. Does the trajectory corrections that may be required. It's a dynamic phenomenon. It's not a static phenomenon. That is defining characteristic of 21st century international relations. Therefore, the more meaningful question is not whether Pakistan has outperformed India diplomatically. The more important question is whether India continues to adapt its foreign policy to an increasingly competitive and multipolar world while protecting its long-term national interests. Whether India is able to adjust to the multipolar world, which is emerging now. The days of Cold War are over. In BRICS, India would be talking about de-dollarization. BRICS currency, which the United States of America doesn't like. These are the issues. And this is where sometimes, like a chess championship, one has to sacrifice a piece and save a pawn for the ultimate victory. That is diplomacy. If India continues to strengthen its economy, invest in technological innovation, deepen strategic partnerships, maintain diplomatic balance, and enhance its international credibility, its global influence is likely to continue to expand. And if it doesn't do that, it will become saddled with issues almost incapable of carrying their own load. Nani Palkhiwala once said that India is like a donkey laden with golden bars. The donkey doesn't know the worth and value of gold, and yet, or nonetheless, it feels the load of it. Let's not be one more donkey debating about the foreign policy. It's a long term game. It cannot be just decided across the table. If India continues to strengthen its economy, invest in technological innovation, deepen strategic partnerships, maintain diplomatic balance, and enhance its institutional credibility, its global influence is likely to continue and expand. In international politics, there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. There are only permanent national interests. The nations that understand this principle and pursue it with strategic vision, economic strength, and diplomatic maturity will shape the emerging world order in the times to come. And India, where it will stand, would decide about its position, how best and with what kind of commitment and finesse India is able to handle its strengths, multiply them, deal with the weaknesses, cover them up, and deal with the foreign nations with always one objective in mind, that what is my country's interest. What I'm talking about, whether it will be in the interest of India. And I think if the answer is yes, you have arrived. The answer is no. The wisdom lies in gracefully retreating from that kind of a scenario and try again, because diplomacy doesn't close the doors forever. If the door is closed today, if it is slammed on your face today, tomorrow it might reopen. The diplomacy, the second name is hope. Diplomacy, the second name is tactics. The diplomacy, the second name is national interest. And when you talk of this, and then evaluate India and Pakistan, perhaps you might reach a different conclusion. I hope you will do that. I'll be very happy to get your views, unbiased. Understand very clearly that I am an Indian, and if at all anything is sat deep at my heart, it is the interest of my country. सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा, हम बुलबुलें हैं उसकी, वो गुलशिता हमारा. Patriotism is nobody's monopoly. Patriotism comes from likes of Abdul Kalam and also Sam Pitroda. Patriotism means something one would always like to add to the advantage, the competitive advantage the nation has in this increasingly competitive becoming world. And to that hope in future, I dedicate my today's presentation before you. Give me your opinion, friends. Be our subscribers. Don't forget to push the button. Also, join us at Real Debate and Khabardar. The trio will make you a full basket, balanced information on most of the important happenings in the world as well in India. Wish you all the best. Thank you. Jai Hind.